And this is the first car we're going to look at. This is the observation car. It looks very similar to the 7Y version, except for the slightly different window spacing, and the end here is actually a lot more realistic. So this does have removable panels, roof panels as per the previous one, and this car is the most complete one, obviously because I kind of like observation cars. So I can remove it with the roof, just like the old one. These are just held in with friction. These also are missing the black panels. That one's got the complete one, but these panels here should be black, so I'm using green, greys, pretty much any colour I can that's the right size and the right part. So I'll just put those there. You might have them falling back later. The interior is essentially just a stretched version of the 7-wide one, so there's not much in the way of changes. There's a few more details, but there are some part submissions as well, and things are slightly different to the LDD version in order to actually fit in some passengers into some of the seats. So here's the interior. As you can see, it's quite well detailed. The bar section still needs to be expanded because that little serving desk needs to be extended this way towards this register a bit more. The coffee machine is there as was the previous one. We've got a little storage compartment there that should have some canisters on top, like the 1x1 round cones, the actual brick pieces. One brown for brown sugar, one white for white sugar. Obviously, there's a little bin here, so that's just a 1x2 brick and a 1x2 panel piece with 3 sides. So it's very easy to do that. Obviously, that should be in blue and it's red. So obviously, if I turn the car around now, you can see that it is quite glaring that is the wrong part, and you can also tell that that's the wrong part because that's in red as well. So again, I'm using quite obvious colours to indicate that's wrong, like the yellow on the underframe here. So interior then, it's pretty similar to the old one, except the fact that obviously you've got 2 sides of seating now. And all the previous passengers are in here, but they are with some changes. So the lady that was having a drink is now actually back here. So the waitress is actually serving the gentleman here. The one who was looking out the side window is actually now looking at the end of the car, the track that was just passed. The lady who was eating the croissant is still there, still looking rather smiley. The bar section has been expanded as well, so there's more cup, there's a bit more space. The cupboard there needs a door on it, or some shelves that's behind the lady and the little lamp. So yeah, pretty much just expanded from the previous version. There's not much new in terms of extra detail. It's just the fact that it's wider. There's 2 rows of seats and there's 2 other bits and pieces. The end is kind of rounded. I would have preferred a smoother rounded end, and you could do this in 8 wide, but unfortunately you couldn't seat people in like I want to. You can tell that there's quite a lot of pieces in here that are on colour. There's some purple, some white. I have got some parts in to change these out to the correct part colours, except for these hinge pieces. I do need to put, when I do an order, I do need to order some of those in the white to fill this out. There is a bit of flex as well, so these pieces are actually flexing backwards because these 2 pieces here, so if I take this off, that is actually just being held in. So obviously that's just one, so that is actually holding that in. That's just for a bit of strength and also to give this a bit more of a rounded edge. I could leave, if I took this off, I could just make this these pieces here just a 1x2 tile, but unfortunately that would then mean that the whole section was a bit weak, and besides having it in is within, I'd feel, within tolerance of the parts. You know, there's nothing major, no major distortion, there's no major breakers or anything else. With regards to this piece here, this is actually not held in at all, so I can literally just do that. There is a piece missing that should go in here, so if I squeeze this back in, I probably can't do this now, so I can also put it that way and then swing it that way, which is how I normally do it. There should be a 1x1 corner tile in there just to fill that little gap in. And obviously underframe has just been copied over from the previous model. but I have, because it's a 7 wide underframe but a 8 wide body, I have just offset it using the anti-studs that aren't not the regular studs, the actual proper anti-studs. So they're actually in the tubes to get that nice offset. So there's a little bit of the lip over here, which I kind of like, but I would prefer a bit smoother, so obviously that's something to discuss later. The only other submission I've changed so far is to change this end window here. So instead of having the clear one, it's actually got these bars across that. That is actually from the Club Car set for the Brickliner series. So I think it was 1001 for the re-release. No, 1002 for the re-release, and then whatever 4-digit number it was for the original 1991 release. So it's just a bit of extra detail. I do like that sort of aesthetic of having those bars, so I might copy over to that one and possibly those two as well, just to get a nice thing. The issue is that one has got a seat behind it, so I might just leave it as those two, because that one having bars on it might look a bit weird when that one doesn't. So it just has a nice complete look to it. Anyway, that's enough of the observation car. Let's now have a look at the combine. So this is the combine. It is a bit weird that I've gone straight from the observation car to the combine, but there's a very good reason for that, in that this, aside from the observation car, is the only odd one out, if you like, because although it's the same size and same overall dimensions, width and height and everything else to the main cars, it has this inset door here, which is different from the other ones. So obviously I'll be able to create the chassis, test it for strength and everything else, but then obviously I've had to modify it for this inset door, so that's why I kind of wanted to get the combine out of the way. Again, like the observation car, there's several pieces in the wrong colour. This band across the top here should all be blue above this windows. So you see there's red, there's brown, I think there's some black on the other side possibly. And again in the actual panel sections there's some brown here, which should be black. These red pieces will be blue, these should all be blue. It's essentially just I don't have the parts, so I'm just using whatever colours I can. One thing I will point out, but I didn't point out on the observation car, is that the doors are actually slightly different. So they're obviously 4 wide doors now, because the corridor section is now 6 wide. But I'm now able to use a 1 by 2 by 2 panel piece instead of the bricks. So that actually gives us a nice clearer window, and you can actually see the reverse of a headlight brick there, and that's actually so there's actually a door handle on the opposite side using the old small feathers that went into the caps that were introduced in the castle theme. So obviously if I take the roof off, again it's just like the other one, just some part submissions because they're wrong colour, so I'm running out of the 2x10s in black, so I've used some brown there. There's a white one in there. This one is actually held in, so I have to use it like that because of the way I've built the doors and held them in. I've had to use a 2x6 plate here, so obviously that section actually sticks in. So the interior then, there's nothing in the interior as of yet. The reason why you've got this sort of stretcher bar across here is that that's where the interior ends for the passenger section. So that section is all for passengers, that section is all for luggage or post, and the conductor. So there's going to be I want to build a little office in here somewhere for the conductor to store his paperwork and a few other bits and pieces. So there's going to be some luggage racks in here and everything else. There's no door here because this is actually a specialist door, because obviously as the head end car, right next to the locomotive, this actually has to have a special door made that actually incorporates some studs facing this way, so that then I can cover this up completely to smooth it out, so there's no actual door visible effectively. So there's going to be a door there, and you will be able to see it from the interior, but it will be hidden from the outside, which is going to be a rather interesting piece of construction. And I actually did cover that in the previous video showing off the LDD version. The doors are non-functional, I will point that out. This sort of headlight brick here, again, is for one of those feathers. This time it's actually from Aladdin, because you have a nice gold colour to it. So it's just a nice bit of decoration, if you like. I could go with yellow again, but because this is the outside of the car, I do want it to look a little bit more special. So the Aladdin ones, which are in a gold colour, actually look a bit better there. They do have a black bit where they fit into the headlight brick, but obviously that's not going to be seen, so obviously this, a little bit of gold here will actually suit quite nicely. There is no underframe yet because, again, I don't have the parts. And one of the things I do want to consider is actually extending this handrail when I put it in further down to reach the sort of like the underbelly. And I do want to put some steps as well in here, so that if there was something on the track side and I wanted to get it in, there is some steps and there's a handrail as well to help the crew come in and out of this car. So obviously this door itself would actually slide that way, so obviously you'd have a handle there, you'd lift it up to unlock it and then slide it backwards, and then that would obviously allow you to board in and out of the car. So obviously this side I need to keep free of any immediate area. So there's obviously a 6 wide door, so if you used 5 studs and obviously 5 studs in, would be where it ends. So it ends where that red one actually starts, so there it'll just be held in just for extra space for the door to slide in. So that'll still be that from there to be usable, and obviously that there is all usable as well. So there's not much to talk about really with the Combine. You know, it's the second car I've built, but it's also the one, but again, it's a bit of a specialist car, but it's one where, again, I've run out of parts to do anything else with. So obviously the way I've had to do the roof is that because of this, I've had to put these two in, then I can put this one. Rather interestingly, the end of this piece actually lines up with the end of the door section, so I can push it down like that and then also house it in. The another good point about having that there is that I can actually push in one of these, and it angles like that, and it actually won't slide about, so I know that that end is actually alright on this. So I technically have 3 main removable roof sections, and I can remove this one if I need to as an emergency. So that's it for the Combine at the moment. We're now going to have a look at some body sides for a car, but just the sides because I don't have the pieces. So when I said sides, I do literally mean sides of the car. So obviously we're missing the underframe, we're missing the roof, so these would be about like that, and then obviously you'd have the combining bits and the underframe and everything else. Again, like the Combine, there's quite a few pieces missing here. The underframe, the ends, you know, there's quite a lot missing obviously, but there's other things as well. So obviously there's supposed to be a band here. This should be blue, so this obviously is the standard class version. If this was a yellow bar, this would be the first class section, which I do want to do another one of. So this car is the open car, so obviously there'd be this one. There'd also be a first class one in yellow with sort of like more padded seats if you like, slightly different layout, because obviously it's serving the sort of like the first class dining area. It's very nice. The reason why there's a difference between the two sides is that this is the toilet end, so this section here would actually be where the toilet is, so the door must be here. Now you might be asking why there's no integration into the side for the actual door sort of toilet walls, and the reason for that is that I can build the car up most of the way and then add in the toilet detail once the actual carcass is, and like the underframe and the sides and everything else is complete and built in. And then I can just build up the toilet section and then just plonk it in on top. Because I also want to integrate all that sort of like toilet detail and that hand basin and possibly a towel and that sort of stuff. And I can't really do that when I've built it all up without dismantling the car. So if I leave that as that toilet wall, sort of those 2 walls as a separate section, I can actually take that out later, or sort of put it in, or sort of build it up now, then take it out later when I want to add that detail, and then I can put it back in, and I'm not having to dismantle the side of the car at all. So it just makes it a little bit neater. Obviously I've run out of 1x8 tiles in black, so these should all be black. Also this layer should be blue, and obviously I don't have enough for the underframe, so this is as far as I've gotten with the third car. So essentially now I'm just awaiting to get some funds to put an order on, and the primary thing I want to get sorted at the moment is, if we're talking about the Brickliner, is to complete the other 2 cars to completion, and then sort out the underframe for this one. The roof I don't feel is as important as getting the underframe in, because if I got the underframe in, I can then sort of finish off the end sections quite easily. I also want to finish off the roof for the Combine as well, so then I've got at least 2 cars which are more or less complete. Obviously the underframe on the Combine would be a bit of an issue with that, saying they're complete, but at least if they're majority complete, I can sort of, if I need to, I can show them off as is, as they are. So obviously there's quite a lot of work to do, and now I'm going to revert to my actual behind the camera look, and we'll go into the LDD file to have a little bit of comparison for the underframes, which I mentioned earlier. So when referring to the underframe, it's important to get a bit of aspect about the real life example, and to be honest, I've had some trouble finding real life examples of streamlined trains, especially American ones, which is this is kind of supposed to be imitating towards, which actually have streamlined underframes. It's very much very rare. The bodies normally were, but the underframe, generally speaking, may have had a bit of a sort of extension of the body side down slightly over the bogies, or the section between the bogies at least, but that was generally speaking about it. So obviously there's a few images of that which will be in the which have been on screen, but obviously the thing with the design of it is I have to work out how that fits in to Lego. So on the screen now is actually the current design. So we have a copy of a open here, and we've got the underframe as I've currently got it on the observation car, where it's half a stud offset. So as you can see, if I do this, you can actually see that there's a very slight lip just here, which could act as a bit of weather protection against the underframe, but it also doesn't mean it's not flush. So that is close to what the pictures are showing, but not there. But this does mean that there's a bit of a, although there's a bit of an overhang, it does keep everything nice and tight inside. So those filler caps or valves, for example, if I was going to use a decorated piece, would actually be hidden away from the side of the body frame. So that might go in its favour, because obviously carriage washing facility, etc., could be quite rough. So obviously if we've got delicate equipment in there, that would need to have been reset or possibly flush glazed, and specially treated to ensure that it wouldn't have issues when going through carriage washes. So obviously if I'm recessing the tank section slightly, or the underframe slightly, that may help protect the delicate components inside the underframe and the sides from those harsher train washing facilities. So moving on from that, we then go to the old style. So when it was 7 wide, it would have this style where it was nice and flush. So obviously here there is no lip protecting the underbelly. This is nice and flush, so this does look a bit more sort of realistic as per the current, you know, the trains we've used or seen. So that this is a nice flush straight from the bodywork straight down to the underframe, and then a nice curve under. The issue is that obviously we now have protruding detail in these hubcaps. So obviously I could then recess those by using some snot or using some techniques like that where it protects those aspects, but again that is extra pieces and it's a bit more complexity, and it can weaken the design of that underframe slightly. It is doable, but again it's something to consider. So obviously we've come now to the end design, and this is going completely away from the others, and this actually uses these 2x2 curved slopes with a recess behind them. So obviously this would be a much more delicate and more laborious underframe to construct, and again this would have difficulty if I wanted to retrofit lights, for example. I'd have a harder time accessing the batteries and that sort of thing about servicing it. So obviously this is a possible but probably not design, but this uses these curved slopes obviously, and it's also got slopes underneath. So if you look from the end, there's actually a very nice sort of underframe. Unfortunately that also dips below the level of the bogies, and I kind of don't want to do that. It does it on it's sort of flush on these almost. So there's a very nice level of gap between the frame, or the level of the wheel there, and the actual underside of the tanks, etc. So again, it's something where it does it very nicely. whereas this, it dips below, so obviously there's less. No, it's about the same clearance actually. Obviously the issue is then I have to be careful about any adjustments and gradients, etc. So obviously this is a more smoother design, especially because it's more rounded. Unfortunately, it's also quite parts intensive, so there's a lot of bits to it. There's a lot of shapes, etc. So this is a design I'd like to be able to do because obviously it's nice and smooth, but obviously there's issues with that. The other issue as well is that if I wanted to encapsulate the bogey slightly, so where you've got this transition here, you see that there's this wanted gap in for swivel for the bogies to go around curves. If I wanted to get something in there to smooth out that curve, on this design it would be really hard to do that, whereas on the others it would be feasible. So this is it would be nice, but probably not. So that's it for the March update. So hopefully in the next couple of months I'll be able to put some part orders in, get some more parts, and then the Brickliner will progress a little bit further. So that's it from me for now, and I'll see you in the next update.